What's up, Buckeye fans? Welcome to another episode of the Bucknuts Happy Hour. I'm Patrick Murphy from Bucknuts and 24/7 Sports, here with you today. We have reached week 4 of the college football season, which means Ohio State's first off weekend of the year. The Buckeyes are 3-0, as you know, have beaten Texas, Grambling State in a blowout, and then OU in a comfortable win, one that could have been a more sizable gap had they finished drives in the end zone. But we've exhausted our conversation on that over on Bucknuts. If you want to read about red zone and all that stuff, there's plenty on there. This Bucknuts Happy Hour is going to be a little different. We're not going to focus so much on the games that have happened, or we're not going to focus on the future. We'll look at that starting next week. But we do have 2 guests I'm pretty excited about, which I will tell you about in a moment. But first, we're drinking a high noon, a tequila seltzer grapefruit today. I had a litany of seltzers in the fridge, so I figure before we really get into fall and lose summer, I might as well finish these off. So cheers. All right, on today's show, we're going to have 2 guests, as I mentioned. The first will be Big Ten Network's Jake Butt, who is going to join us, the former Michigan tight end. That will be more focused on Ohio State, what he's seen from the Buckeyes, what he's seen from the Big Ten in his work covering games. And then we are going to be joined by 24/7 Sports national recruiting analyst Greg Biggins, who covered Julian Sayin through the recruiting process during his high school recruitment. Obviously, Julian Sayin, now a Buckeye quarterback, but was playing out in San Diego at Carlsbad High School, and then committed to Alabama, enrolled at Alabama, and then made the decision to transfer to Ohio State after Nick Saban retired. This will be a part of a bigger feature, which will be on Bucknuts, on Julian Sayin. And I've talked to a few other people that knew Julian Sayin as a high school player, and we'll have what I hope to be a pretty interesting story on the Buckeye quarterback. But first, we're going to go and focus on what we've seen from the Buckeyes this year and talk with Jake Butt of the Big Ten Network. And now on the Bucknuts Happy Hour, we'd like to welcome in Big Ten Network analyst and former Michigan tight end, Jake Butt. Jake, welcome to the Bucknuts Happy Hour. Thanks for joining, my man. How you doing?
Doing well. Appreciate you having me, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. After you put out the tweet preseason about what you saw when you were at Buckeye camp, I got this question from a buddy of mine, which I thought was a funny way to start this. Basically, obviously you're a Columbus guy, you grew up in Pickerington, but you also went to Michigan. So when you put out, whether it's on BTN, whether it's on Twitter, positive things about the Buckeyes, what's the feedback from the fan base up in Ann Arbor?
I really don't know, and it goes both ways. Like, I just put a breakdown of Bryce Underwood on my X and Instagram, and I get it then from Ohio State fans or Oklahoma fans, like, this guy's a homer. And I don't change my approach. Obviously I love Michigan. I went to the university, I gave my body for the university, but I hold that separate from my work. I just provide my honest analysis. That is my goal. That is the way I approach it. I watch the film, I watch the games, I listen to the press conferences. I really try to educate myself before I give my opinion. And then when I do give my opinion, it's just that. It's just an honest analysis. I have no ulterior motive in either direction. So whatever anyone says, I really don't care. I just hold myself to that standard.
Yeah, well, I think you do a great job with it. I think if you didn't know where you went to school, if you're listening to you calling games or whatnot, you'd have no idea that you were a part of this rivalry or on that side of the rivalry or whatnot. So
that's the goal for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into this Buckeye team, because you saw them in fall camp. We talked about that, and then you saw them a couple weeks ago when they played Grambling State. Obviously not the toughest of opponent, but I'm sure you've paid attention to what they've done in other games. Just your general assessment first of this team, and then we'll kind of get into some specifics of what you've seen.
Well, I would say this is, the best teams in college football, they're tested and predicated by their ability to reload. it's easier to have one really special season every couple of years, but when you're Ohio State or you're Michigan or you're Alabama or Georgia, like the standard does not waver or change, and you're expected to win every single year. And as talented as Ohio State was last year, it was a veteran team with a ton of seniors and upperclassmen, and we all knew that Ohio State was going to be replacing a bunch of names. And that was the big question. And yet what we saw against Texas, what we've seen to start the season, is Ohio State and Ryan Day, they have reloaded and they are here to stay. There was like an article that, Ohio State is recession proof. And frankly, that's a pretty fair assessment, historically looking at the team. Defensively, I mean, my goodness, great test against Sark, and obviously Arch Manning has been struggling to open the season. But I think Matt Patricia, the marriage of his intelligence with a guy like Caleb Downs, with the versatility of Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles at linebacker, it's this really perfect, beautiful marriage that is just complicated for opposing offenses to try to solve the equation. And off that, just to kind of continue this, Denzel Burke had been a big time name. He was a freshman All-American. Expectations were sky high. Maybe he didn't fully meet the expectations that we had for him coming off that freshman season. But hey, what are you going to do replacing him? And Jermaine Matthews, in my opinion, looks like he's going to be better than Denzel Burke. Cody Simon, a leader, just a true Buckeye, a guy that Ohio State fans have seen grow up. He's not as athletic as Sonny and Arvell, but he was a true Buckeye. Yeah. And how do you replace him? Arvell Reese looks like he is going to be better. Already maybe is better than Cody Simon, and just a freak athlete. So just across the board, they've reloaded offensively. The three-headed monster was Jeremiah Smith and Mecca Egbuka and Carnell Tate. Obviously, Jeremiah and Carnell are back. I was expecting and have been expecting and waiting to see a ton of Max Clare, but Ohio State's 5 deep at the tight end position, so I don't think they're worried about showcasing one individual player, but I do think that they've reloaded from a weapon standpoint this year once again. So across the board, they look good. Still got to figure out running back. Bo Jackson, I think it's a matter of time. He just has that it factor that the other guys don't. His workload will just increase over the season. Finding an elite pass rusher, what Michigan has done. I was calling their game last week, and they took one of their linebackers and moved him to edge. Jayshon Barham has been playing edge, and he's become their best pass rusher. I felt like Arvell Reese has been Ohio State's best pass rusher, so we might see more of that going forward. But certainly this is a team that's ready to compete for another conference title and compete for a national title.
You took me a couple places I want to touch on, but we'll start at the position you played at tight end there. We talked to Max Clare after the game. Obviously, he catches his first touchdown as a Buckeye. Big expectations coming in. I think if you just looked at the stats, 4 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown, maybe it's not what Buckeye fans expected. Will Kazmarek, obviously, in there, Bennett Christian. Just from that group, you mentioned it's a deep group, but you having played it at a high level, what do you see from that whole 5 deep group, as you put it?
That's as talented of a tight end room as you'll find in college football. They're really, really deep. And, to play tight end at Ohio State, you have to be able to block. I played with Jeff Hireman and Nick Vanette in the NFL, and Ohio State has been able to recruit 4-star and 5-star tight ends, high-level talented tight ends. It's just the issue is as talented as the tight ends are, the wide receivers are even better. So you just simply have to block. You have to pass protect to play in this Ohio State offense, and then you're going to have to be able to take advantages when the opportunities do come. But you understand you're the second or third option at best on any given play. So they're really, really deep. Who's the freshman tight end? Nate
Roberts.
Ryan Day said that this guy, he told us, he's like, yeah, this guy is as good as we've seen from a young guy here. So very, very high praise. And I do believe, Max Clare, there's no time to hit the panic button. He reminds me so much of Colston Loveland. I think if he was in a system that featured him, like, obviously Purdue featured him and we saw the stats he put up in the production, but he has a first round type potential to him just because of the way he moves and how he understands route concepts and leverage. They haven't needed him quite yet, but I think there's going to be big moments this season when they do call upon Max Clare, and that's when Ohio State fans and college football fans will get to see his full potential.
Do you think that's the biggest thing that he adds is that ability when you do need another guy you've got a guy at tight end now that is a more reliable, not to say anything about the guys they've had in the past negatively, but he's more of a pass catcher and he's available when needed. Is that kind of your view?
Yeah, and there's just an art to route running. It's not just about being really fast. It's not just about being really strong or big. Like, what happens when it's zone coverage and speed doesn't matter? Do you understand leverage? Can you feel the zones? Can you do it within timing? Like, do you have that timer in your head of if it's a 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, when is the quarterback getting to his first hitch and throwing me the ball? Like, do you have that type of feel? That's stuff you can't just coach guys. Some guys get it and some guys don't. Do you understand leverage? A corner route in the playbook is 10 yards vertical, 45-degree angle towards the corner. But a corner route in real time can look 5 different ways based on coverages and leverage. And some guys just understand it and they get it. And that's what Max Clare has. And he has the nuance to be able to separate and has really trusty hands. I know he had the drop against Texas to open the season, but he's overall basically just a wide receiver in a tight end's body. And football's a game of matchups, so I made this point. A lot of teams, they're going to have to play split safety. They're going to have safety help over the top to help their corner against Jeremiah. And you'd have to do the same against Carnell because you don't want to leave him one-on-one. He's going to win that, which leaves a linebacker on Max Clare. And in a game of matchups, that's about as good of a matchup as any offense will find in college football. There's really no linebackers that are going to be able to stick with Max Clare. So again, look, it's early in the season. His number will be called upon in big moments, and he'll be ready.
The running game, you also touched on Bo Jackson. That's been a big topic around Columbus and Buckeye Nation these last few weeks, especially Bo Jackson these last two with his back-to-back 100-yard performances. I know Ryan Day has typically hesitated to play freshmen at that position just because of the things you have to do without the ball in your hands. But when you look at, you said it, he has something different than those guys that have started games so far. So how do you kind of break this down and the stuff that isn't carrying the ball? Do you see enough of that from Bo Jackson to think that he can take over that role?
Well, I think his high school coach, if you just talk about pass catching and route running, his high school coach said that this guy's the total package and would be a great receiver. And Ryan Day even told us that as well. He thinks that Bo could like hold his own as a slot receiver. So that's one thing that he brings to the table without the ball. Pass protection is obviously the other big one, and there's not been enough opportunities. It's different, when he's in the game, and so far when he's been in the game, it's been to run out the clock, and you're not seeing a ton of stuff. Pass protection is really, really hard, even for veteran running backs, for the best guys. That's probably one of the hardest things to do in football. And I don't need to get too deep into the X's and O's here, but it is really, really challenging to identify. And then, of course, to go execute when a guy's running full speed at you. But that shouldn't be the limiting factor. A lot of teams, gosh, when I was playing, we just put our fullback in and who cares when it's 3rd and 8, everyone knows you're passing anyways. So put your fullback in to go hit the linebacker and then have them leak out for the check down. So that should not be the limiting factor. I just do believe you see it. I see it. We see it. Ryan Day sees it. He just has that juice, that it factor. It's, running back is one of those positions. It's not something that it's necessarily even about coaching. Like you can coach a guy, but can you feel the holes open? Do you know how to press and set the blocks before jump cutting late? Do you have the athletic ability to turn the corner? And Bo, it just looks like it comes natural to him, and he's just got some freaky juice when he has the ball in his hands. So again, I just think his role is going to increase. He's earning the trust so far of the coaching staff, I believe.
And what about James Peoples and CJ Donaldson? Because there was a lot of buzz about them coming in this season. I know talking to Carlos Laughlin, he was very excited about what they could bring. The numbers haven't been there. But I think the Buckeyes aren't going to completely go away from two guys they still believe can do it. Is that kind of your read?
They shouldn't go away from them either. I mean, those guys are quality backs. It's more about just the standard in Columbus. Like the standard is so high for everybody. Those guys are really good backs. CJ Donaldson, there's an art to scoring down in the low red zone. Like that's not about coaching or scheme or anything. Those are muddy, ugly pictures down inside the 5. And can you find a way to get skinny in that hole and run your feet and keep your balance and drive? And I think he's got 11 touchdowns the last 2 seasons, and he's already showcased his ability down inside the red zone. He looks lighter. I know he changed his body this offseason. So he provides something different than any of the other backs just because he's so big and so strong. He'll be part of the game. And then James Peoples, they said the same thing about Peoples last year that they said about Bo. Like, I remember we were calling some game that was going to be a blowout, and we're asking about some of the young guys, and Coach Day said, yeah, we're really excited about James Peoples. And you saw flashes last year in his opportunity. It's just different now because you're going up against starting quality defenses. And the game needs to slow down for him. I don't think he's seeing things well. I don't think he's reading things well or feeling things well. But when he does, you see the talent shine. And it's just, it's going to be tough because he's not going to get with this offense. No one's going to get volume opportunities. That's what made Travion and Quinshawn so dangerous, is they only needed to touch the ball 10 times a game and they were still going to have massive impacts. A lot of running backs do well as volume backs. It's just not the case in Columbus. So what can you do with your opportunities?
You touched on the receivers. We touched on the tight ends. Julian Sayin's obviously been the quarterback. Won the battle in fall camp. We saw a little bit of Lincoln Kienholz as sort of that change of pace guy this past weekend. Julian, couple interceptions last week. I know he wants those back. He talked about after the game, but all in all, I've been impressed. What is your eyes telling you about the first time starter?
Yeah, I've been impressed, and I think like why go with Julian? And it's because of the total picture of the weapons on the outside. And Lincoln is a gamer and an athlete and a playmaker, and that certainly has its place. But with how talented Ohio State is on the outside, you need a facilitator and you need a point guard, and I think that kind of fits more Julian's capability. And I said this on Big Ten Network last week. I feel like he's got like Olympic archer level accuracy. Like, it's such a tight spiral. It's such a catchable ball, and it just drops right in to where it needs to be. I mean, the back shoulder fade that he threw to Carnell against Grambling State, I'm like, man, I said that then. I said, it looks like Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So, and he seems to process things really well. Like, that ball is out of his hands quick. He is sure of himself and certain of himself. So he's going to get better as the season goes on. It's never perfect to start. I mean, I remember when CJ Stroud first got his starts and people were calling for his head right away. Like, they wanted to bench him. The most popular guy in town is always the backup, but every single rep counts. And you can quicken your learning curve by learning from your mistakes. And it seems to me like Julian is a guy that would fit. Like, he's going to learn from his mistakes. I don't get the sense that he's a imposing leader, though. I don't. From talking to him, he seems like more of a quiet guy, reserved guy. Does his job, probably leads by example. But I thought that's one of the big strengths that Will Howard brought to the team last year, is he was a true alpha and a true leader. And I don't get the sense that that's Julian. Not to say that that's a bad thing. You can have leaders from other places, and you can lead in other ways than being vocal. But it's just an observation at this point.
Do you think that's something he can learn, or do you think it even is something he needs to change, given the, kind of your experience with quarterbacks? Can you be that kind of chill, attitude and still be successful at Ohio State and potentially even beyond?
I don't think it's something you can learn, and I don't think it's something you can just switch on. It is the number one trait of leadership is authenticity, and you have to just be yourself. So I just don't think Julian is suddenly going to become some alpha and vocal guy and a rah-rah guy in the locker room. But you can lead in other ways. You can lead by, being extremely accountable, by being mentally engaged, by, having complete mastery of the offense and helping guys get lined up. And then you can lead by, in the fourth quarter, when the game's on the line, making a ton of plays. Part of this is there's an unspoken rule of leadership. What made Tom Brady so great and he was a great leader. So but the fundamental aspect of what made Tom Brady great is when he got in the huddle, when he took the huddle with 2 minutes left in the game and they needed to drive down, score a touchdown. The other 10 guys in the huddle were laser focused on Tom because they knew if they did their job, Tom was going to lead them to victory. There's that belief. Look at Tampa Bay. When Tom got to Tampa Bay, that was a really good football team with good quarterback play, and they just couldn't get over the hump. All they changed was Tom Brady, and all of a sudden everybody else's play gets elevated because all of a sudden they knew. They didn't even just believe. They knew that if they did their job, Tom was going to lead them to victory. So that's kind of what this season is about. Each week is Julian planting seeds that will lead to that future belief for Ohio State going forward.
You touched on the defense briefly off the top. I know when Matt Patricia first got hired, I was a little skeptical. Certainly what we've seen, but even just talking to him, and I'm sure you got to talk to him when you were in Columbus both times, just what you've seen on the field and how he's kind of fit in to this college game. I don't think he's coached in college since 2003, but it seemed to be seamless so far.
Yeah, he is extremely, extremely intelligent. It's like this. He was like a rocket science. It was going to work for NASA and all these. His background speaks for itself. And then you go from the NFL where he was an offensive coordinator, defensive. I mean, he literally wore every single hat in the NFL and comes down to college. And the big question is, the rules are different. You only get 20 hours a week to work with your players. Right. And, they have to go to class and they have NIL obligations. And it's like, hey, do you have the ability to take a super complex system and put it and simplify it in a way where college kids can absorb it and then go execute it in pressure situations? And what I've been really impressed with, obviously, like, he's lost weight, he's changed his body. I know you guys get the sense he is almost like a renewed person, very positive, very energetic. And I think that shines through in his teaching ability because the players are receptive of that. And the Texas game was a great indicator of what this season would be, because to run as complex of coverages as he did, all the different fronts they ran, the exotic looks of how they moved guys around, and to do that at week one and execute it at the level they did, I think just says everything you need to know about Ohio State's defense this year. Like, he's going to have them rolling, and there's going to be a chess match, in the biggest games when it's Ohio State against the best teams. Matt Patricia, that's opposing offensive coordinators. That is going to be frustrating because they know, like, they're going up against one of the smartest football minds there is. And he's going to do some things to really keep you on your heels.
You obviously, working for the Big Ten Network, are watching all of these games. Just conference-wide, who are the teams that have stood out to you thus far, outside of Ohio State, which we've been talking about? But who else, maybe for fans who haven't watched a ton of other games yet as conference play gets going, are teams that you should keep an eye on?
Yeah, no, Ohio State fans, we opened this. I told you, I'm just going to give you my honest analysis. All right. There's no bias here. Ohio State deserves to be ranked number one. That was a great win over Texas. They've done nothing to, falter from that. But if you just look at the way Oregon's playing football right now, Oregon has a strong case to be ranked number one as well. They are dismantling anyone and everyone standing in their way. They don't have a win over Texas. So no, they're not going to be ranked number one, but they are flying high. Dante Moore they went from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel to Dante Moore, and I think Dante Moore is more talented than the previous two guys. I think he'll end up in New York this year as a Heisman finalist. Offensive line reloaded. They're 6 deep at the running back position. It's nuts. I mean, Mekhi Hughes was one of the best running back transfers in the portal, and he's literally not even playing because they're so deep. DeCorian Moore, their freshman wide receiver, they look at him like Ohio State looked at Jeremiah Smith, just a guy that is way beyond his years. So they're loaded. They're loaded there. Will Stein, their offensive coordinator, I really believe he'll be a finalist for the Broyles Award, doing a great job of distributing the football and calling their offensive system. And then defensively, that D-line is ferocious. Like, you just don't think of trench play when you think of Oregon, but their defensive line is loaded with high-level talent, interior, exterior. size and speed, pass rushing ability. And then they went out and got Dylan Thieneman in the transfer portal. And I've seen an evolution over these first few weeks. They're copying Ohio State in what they do with Caleb Downs. They're doing that with Dylan Thieneman, where he's playing that Caleb Downs type role, sitting about 8 yards over the line of scrimmage, where he's far back enough that opposing offensive lines don't account for him in the run game. And yet then he triggers right away, and he's stoning ball carriers at the line of scrimmage. So yeah, Oregon definitely stands out. Penn State's been looking shaky, man. I don't know what's going on there. They got a bye week, and then they host Oregon at home, night game, whiteout. I mean, I don't know. I truly don't know what's going on there. Penn State is trying to follow the Michigan and Ohio State model of having a veteran team, and they're all in. They need to win this one because it's a mental battle. I'll throw in Illinois, Indiana. That's a playoff game this weekend, effectively. Washington's looked good. You guys got a bye week, then head to Washington. They haven't lost at home since 2021. Their young quarterback, Damon Williams, stud. I think Jonah Coleman, their running back's the best running back in the conference. I'm just telling you right now. He's really, really good. And then I'll end it here. Nebraska. This game against Michigan this weekend is huge for both opponents. This will be a revealing game for Nebraska and Michigan. Nebraska gets Michigan at home. Sharon Moore will not be coaching. Michigan's starting a freshman quarterback who played lights out last weekend. I don't care about the opponent because it's irregardless. He completely did his job. So that game is going to reveal a lot, and the winner of that game is going to be in the driver's seat of USC. Too is another team. One of the winner of that game and USC will be right in that second tier, competing with the chance to compete for a conference title berth.
Yeah, it was nice this week with Ohio State playing at night for the first time in a while to be able to watch some of these other teams. Last thing I got for you, just a national scene. Is there anybody that you've seen outside of the Big Ten that maybe isn't one of the top teams right now that you think could be an interesting playoff team, a team that maybe could make a run that no one's really talking about at this point?
You know, on the opposite end, I would say I am shocked by Clemson.
Yeah, that's
I thought Clemson and Penn State, like that was my preseason pick for the national title game. I'm like, man, what they look terrible. Yeah. Man, Georgia Tech. I love that coach. I love Haynes King. I love that program. They play with such spirit. USF, they're rolling, another dangerous team. I'd say those few teams really kind of stand out to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jake. I appreciate your time. I thought that was really good insight. And we'll be following along all year as you're calling games on the Big Ten Network and giving your analysis. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks, Patrick.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks to Jake Butt for joining the Bucknuts Happy Hour. Great insight from Jake on the Buckeyes, the Big Ten, and sort of what to expect going forward here. We are now going to turn our attention to Ohio State quarterback Julian Sayin and what Julian was like as a prospect, what was covering him like, those type of things. And to do that, we bring in 24/7 Sports national recruiting analyst Greg Biggins. Greg, how we doing?
Good. How you doing?
I am good. You're out on the West Coast. Is it still warm out there? It's started to get chilly here, and now we're back to like 85
a little bit out here, if you can believe that. But it's still like high 70s drizzle, so I'm not going to complain too much and be that guy. But it's a little watery right now. But I'll take it. I'm not going to complain about the weather ever out here.
No, nor should you. Let's talk about Julian, because you covered him extensively as a high school prospect coming out of Carlsbad. First of all, just your impressions of him when you first started to get to know him, when you first started covering him, both as a player, but also as a guy, a young kid, as he started to work his way up recruiting charts and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've known him since he was a 8th grader or a freshman. It was funny. I think I met him. There was a camp in San Diego. It was during the COVID year when everything was kind of shut down during the fall football season. So there was a camp out there, and I met him. He had an older brother that also played at Carlsbad. So, he was always kind of mature and kind of wise beyond his years, right? You're talking to him, you feel like you're talking to a guy who's already in college and he's like a freshman in high school. So really good kid. We'll kind of go from a personal standpoint. Just I like to watch guys when no one knows they're being watched, right? I just kind of see how he interacts with other people, whether he's a front of the line guy, see that too cool for school guy is going to kind of sit in the back of the line and goof around a little bit. Does he help out younger kids? I saw a lot of what you want to see in a leader. He's talking to people. He was already being asked for autographs at an early age, signed every single one of them. Always very respectful. Mom and dad heavily involved. So great kid. From a quarterback standpoint, he's a lot like you see now, just extremely polished. Just had the pure stroke already. Football IQ extremely high. Again, kind of listening to him give answers to questions. Hey, what did you see in this coverage? What did you like to do in this beater? What's the coverage? And he had answers at an early age. Carlsbad's got a really good head coach, Thad McNeil, who's a quarterback, kind of an underrated quarterback guru. And they always have guys. So again, kind of, had all the answers to the test before he got out there. So at an early age, he was advanced from a physical standpoint, kind of had that lean frame. You kind of hoped he can kind of grow into it a little bit, but, athletic, smart, could extend plays, didn't have to rush out, but he could beat you from the pocket, outside the pocket, accurate. Again, you call it a box checker, right? Kind of a cliche, but everything you kind of wanted to see in a quarterback, he kind of had at an early age. The only thing you wanted to see, hey, smallish frame at that time, about 6 feet, freshman, sophomore year. Hopefully, can he get it to 6'1", 6'1.5"? Can he add some weight? Can he get up to 200 pounds eventually, 215? And I think you're seeing right now he's definitely progressing in a good way.
When you and I were texting to set this up, you mentioned how highly you rated him individually. I know he ended up being one of the top quarterbacks in the class, but not the top quarterback. What made him stand out against other guys?
Yeah, and I think that year was a pretty good year, right? You had obviously, Dylan Raiola, I think was everyone's number one at an early point. DJ Lagway, also really, really highly touted. Julian was a guy who I thought just played the position the right way. I'm a little bit old school, and I'm still trying to learn, kind of the new way of now you're looking at quarterbacks that are raw, and you're trying to see, okay, 3 to 4 years from now, they're going to be here. Julian, there was no projection. He was ready for college as a junior in high school. So it was kind of an easier eval. Just you're kind of trying to, grade, okay, he's got, traits might not be as high in terms of just raw size, physical, athleticism, arm strength. Might not be as high, but he knows how to play the position. He's a guy who can process the game quickly. He can get the ball out on time. He's going to be able to get to a second, third, fourth read, right? Those are things I value. Accuracy. Nothing drives me crazy. It's third and long. A guy breaks open and play the fight song, and the ball is underthrown, overthrown. Accurate deep ball. Kind of had that clutch gene to him. He was a tough kid. Again, people kind of wonder, Carlsbad's kind of a nicer area in San Diego. Is he going to be kind of a prima donna? No, just he's got a lot of dog in him for sure. So I kind of liked where he was at. And although maybe he didn't have as much, I don't want to say long-term upside, I thought he had enough upside to be a first-round pick for sure. And I thought he was the safest bet in that class.
You talked about, just his arm, his accuracy. I think that's things Ohio State fans have seen early. That quick release, it was something that Ryan Day brought up, even going back to last year before he became the starter, when he was, just newly arrived on Ohio State's campus. It's not something you see in everybody, but it when you see it, I think. And he certainly has that. Was that something you saw from the beginning of covering him? For sure.
I think for me, I think the first thing I notice isn't always arm strength. It's the stroke. It's how quick it is to get the ball out. I remember you talk, going back to, the Elite 11 days years ago, and T. Martin, who played quarterback at Tennessee, he was one of our quarterback coaches. And when I would kind of ask him, hey, what, at the highest level, what are the scouts value? And he goes, it's the stroke. He goes, the way the ball comes out, either have it or you don't. You can quicken a release. You can help throw a tighter ball, but he goes, it's just, honestly, it's the way God's just kind of designed your body and your arm. You see guys struggle with a elongated release. They can tighten it, but not always as quick as other people. And he goes, and there's some people who kind of struggle to spin a football, throw it tight. It's just the way your snap comes. He goes, you can get that a little bit better, but either have it or you don't. And Julian had one of the tightest, quickest releases, and the ball came out tight, clean, tight spiral almost every time. It was so natural. So again, huge fan of the way the ball comes out and a huge fan of the quick release. Again, I'll kind of think, I think mentally, how you process and get the ball out quicker is more important than throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, because the way you see it and get the ball out quick, that window's going to close faster. I'll take that guy, a Julian, over a guy who may throw it harder, right? But he takes a while to see it. And he's got to wind up. Julian gets it out, I think, with a plenty of velocity. But because that quick release, those windows are closing, the ball's out, and it's on time. I'll take that over any guy every day.
You talked about his frame off the top. Obviously, he is not the tallest of quarterbacks, right? And that's been talked about here in Columbus. But he seems to be doing just fine. The Texas game didn't look like he was trying to look over guys. When you were watching him, how big of a concern was that for you? You touched on it a little bit, but more so that height, and being 6'1" or whatever he's listed at.
Yeah. So for me, again, being a California guy, the best quarterback I've ever seen, that I've ever covered in 30 years was Bryce Young, who was 5'11". So everyone, I'm saying something obvious, and that everyone you're watching knows. Even if you're 6'5", you're not throwing over a 6'6" lineman. You're throwing through gaps and lanes, right? So It wasn't the 6'1" that kind of concerned me, and that's a too strong of a word, concern. But it was the frame, right? Because he, at a young age, he was very lean, and so height wise, I was good. It was more now. Obviously, if you're 5'8", 5'9", that's a little bit too much. But from a frame standpoint, I just want to make sure Kenny put on enough weight. Big Ten. SEC, very physical. I mean, everything in college football is physical, right? So will he be able to stand up and take a hit against an elite program that's going to, drill him right as he's throwing it? Is he going to be able to stand up bulk-wise and be able to take those hits? Physicality is a big deal. When he's scrambling, he's going to take a hit as he's running for a first down. So I was more interested in just, can he put on enough weight to get up to? I mean, my ideal weight for him would be about 6'1", 215, 6'1 and a half. The last couple of drafts we've seen, Caleb Williams was 6'1 and a half, JJ 6'2, Bo Nix 6'2, Michael Penix 6'1 and a half, 6'2. So I think 6'2, I don't think you need to be Josh Allen 6'4, 6'5. I think that 6'2 is kind of like that new sweet spot, right? So as long as Julian, I think, get the weight up, the size, the height is fine for me.
Yeah, as a shorter guy myself, I'd kill to be 6'1". So, but I'm not playing quarterback. The recruitment process, as he's kind of going through it, obviously he ends up committing to Alabama, enrolling at Alabama, then ends up at Ohio State after Nick Saban retires. But what do you remember? Who were kind of the early schools getting involved, and just sort of take people through how it played out from your memory?
Yeah, early on, I thought Georgia was the team to beat. And, I think I don't do a ton of crystal balls. Definitely don't do as much now. But I think I might have put one in for Georgia, and something happened. I don't know. He took a visit, or I'm not sure. My brain fog is now kicking in that I'm older. So I don't remember exactly what played out, or if he had a bad trip, or if Georgia took another player. But something happened. And then I think he kind of opened it up. And then, USC kind of got in there a little bit. UCLA was always trying. But, when Alabama came and Nick Saban came and said, hey, you're my guy, it was pretty much over. Again, talking to his coach, they were real, almost, I don't want to say in awe, but Nick Saban kind of made a huge deal on them. And then they took a couple visits back there, and they were all Bama. So once Bama got involved, all bets were off, and he was going to roll Tide for sure.
Obviously, he leaves Alabama, goes to Ohio State. Either way, you probably have some good quarterback development. But what was your reaction when he decided to enter the portal and ends up with Ryan Day and the Buckeyes?
I loved it. I thought it was a great fit. I think if you're a quarterback or a receiver, again, for us, we don't root for teams, we root for players. And right. So I know everyone thinks, you rank kids, you'll give them they used to be called the Bama bump, right? And you rank, players, and if they go to a certain school, they get a bump. That's not the case. We just had a 3-hour meeting on Wednesday, and not once did we say, he's going to that school, let's rank him higher. Saying that, we do know that if a guy goes to a certain school, if a receiver goes to Ohio State, he's going to hit. So I think the same thing, with quarterbacks. If a quarterback is going to Ohio State, then we feel really good about where our ranking is at. It doesn't mean we're going to rank him higher in high school, but we feel like we have a better chance of hitting. And that's what we root for, not the colleges. And so when I said I'm going to Ohio State, I was like, okay, I feel good about this. They're always going to have a super deep wide receiver room. Ryan Day does a great job with quarterbacks. Balanced offense. Again, I was a big CJ Stroud guy. I can see, Julian going in there, red shirt in a year, and then he's ready to go. So I love the fit. And I'm hoping, like I said, I hope he continues to progress. But the way he's trending right now, I feel really good about his development.
While we're on the topic, what do you think it is that makes Ryan Day, Billy Fessler, the quarterback's coach, why has it worked so well for quarterbacks at Ohio State, outside of the obvious that Ryan Day played the position?
Yeah, no, I think that's a lot of it. And I don't think you have to have played the position, but I do think it helps. Again, going back to Julian, his high school coach was a former quarterback. So I think you can only teach it so much without actually having to have done it. And then you kind of see the position, you see the game in a different way. I've always said, you see guys switching positions. Guys that are receivers, quarterbacks who get switched over to receiver make kind of stumbling over my words. Quarterbacks make really good receivers because they know how a route's supposed to be run, right? And I've always felt like if you're a former quarterback, you're going to be a pretty good coach. That's where you see so many offensive coordinators who were former quarterbacks. I just think it's such a great fit, and I think Ryan Day's track record has proven that he understands the position, he can teach it. And I think also, let's, just keep it real. It helps to be surrounded by talent, right? The wide receiver room, the O-line, it's not going to be when I get out here in Southern California and I'm watching Nico at UCLA, who's got a half a second to drop and he's got 8 guys in his face. That's tough. Dan Marino's not going to throw for a lot of yards if he's playing at UCLA right now. Not that this the Bruins, but it's great to have the kind of talent around him. But again, I think Ryan Day does a great job of kind of breaking the position down, speaking to these guys in a way that they get it. And I think it helps to have football intelligence. And a lot of quarterbacks that they've had there, CJ, I know personally, extremely smart, high IQ football player. He can process what you're telling him. Kind of another underrated thing when it comes to quarterback development, right? And quarterback evaluating on our end is, hey, is the kid smart? Is he just going to be a one-read guy? Is this when he's listening to this? Is it a foreign language to him? Julian, extremely intelligent football-wise. He's got a PhD in it, so he understands what Ryan wants to do. Ryan does a great job of explaining it, breaking it down. Great offense, great scheme, great talent. Kind of makes for like a little perfect storm, right?
When you were covering him and recruiting in terms of going out, interviewing, those type of things, how was he? I mean, we've talked to him since he's been at Ohio State. Obviously, those are different settings with the school setting those things up. But, he seems like a good kid who's pretty good to talk to. But what were your experiences, your interactions with him? Great
kid. Great kid. Mom and dad, great family. Older brother, awesome. Head coach, awesome. So he had so many pluses around him, right? We talk about like it's not always a level playing field when it comes to families and it comes to coaches, it comes to systems, your high school. He had everything stacked in his favor. Great parents, great high school coach, older brother involved. So then, it was just for him, just kind of like, hey, don't blow it, right? But no, I mentioned watching him away from people, and he was one of the guys. He would talk to anybody. He would talk to little kids. He would sign an autograph. He was great, watching him in drills. If a guy was doing something wrong, he'd pull him out and help him. And so, yeah, phenomenal kid, natural leader, very likable. And again, I'm not just saying this. There's been quarterbacks that I knew. I go, okay, this guy will be the guy most likely to get duct taped to the goalpost when he gets to college because he's a turd of a person. Julian, very, very easy to see, natural leader, likable, great locker room guy.
Are there moments when you've gone to watch him that stood out? I don't know if it's games, practice, whatever it may be, that just come to mind when you think about the time covering him?
I mean, I would say Elite 11,
Okay.
Again, I think as kind of his dog mentality kind of came out. And it's funny, you talk to a lot of those guys at Elite 11 camp or any camps, right? Whether it be an Under Armour game, All-American Bowl, Feature 50, and they're kind of, oh, yeah, I'm happy to be here. Dude, he came to win. Like he made no issue. Like his goal was to come out of there being the best quarterback there. He wanted to be QB1. And was he still polite to the other quarterbacks? Absolutely. Like he wasn't arrogant in that sense, but he was out there to compete hard. And obviously, it came down to him and Dylan. I think were the top 2 guys. Both had really good weeks. But, I know Julian had a little bit of a chip in his eyes. Like a lot of quarterbacks, he felt he was QB1. He wasn't rated as high, but I don't think by anyone had him as the top quarterback at that time. But very confident in his ability. And he kind of wanted to show that, hey, I am the number 1 guy.
You talked about earlier that maybe he doesn't have the long-term success, or at least at that point. As you've seen him now start to play in college, what do you project out for him? Obviously at Ohio State, but maybe beyond in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he's got all the tools, and the more you watch the NFL, the more you're going, that guy made it. Like guys that we didn't think were even going to be good, coming out of high school, and again, long quarterback conversation we had early in the week, and just talking about, the conversation centered around, there's only been like 4 quarterbacks under 6 feet. And one of them was, the last 2 were Dylan Gabriel and Stetson Bennett. And I would never have guessed they'd be on NFL teams when I saw them in high school and in college. And so you never know, man. It's so hard to predict who's going to hit. And you see so many first round quarterback busts. And these are by NFL front offices that are, pay a lot of money to spend tons of, time and effort into really evaluating these guys, and they still miss all the time, right? So for us, it's very difficult. You're trying to project from high school to the NFL. Getting back to Julian, I don't see any reason why he can't hit big. Again, great system, great talent, great coaches. He's a dog, man. He wants to be good. He wants to win. So for me, dude, go out, have 2 great seasons. You watched last year, you understand what it takes to win at that level. Have 2 big years, be 3 and out, go win. Another natty if you can. But I think he's got all the traits to be a first round pick. I really do. And if you're a first round pick in the NFL, you're basically set up to have a long NFL career. It's not guaranteed. I just got done saying a lot of first round busts, but I think he's got the mindset, the mental capacity, and the physical talent, to be a great player in college and to be a high round draft pick in a couple years.
Well, Buckeye fans would certainly like that, though they'd rather him stay around for 3 years probably. But, you only get what you can take out of these guys. Greg, thanks for joining me. I think that's some good insight on Julian. And, I think Buckeye fans now probably know him a little better, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thanks again to both Greg Biggins from 24/7 Sports and Jake Butt for joining us on this Bucknuts Happy Hour. We don't have much in the way of headlines for the Buckeyes for this week, given they do not play. But I do think there's a chance that it could be a good and productive weekend for Ohio State. Obviously, they'll get to look ahead at Washington in the Apple Cup and see their upcoming opponent. But they've got an interesting stretch. Washington, first road game, first Big Ten game. Then you come home from Minnesota. Then you go to Illinois, who at the time of recording this, I believe is number 9 in the country. And then to Wisconsin, who has not had a good start to the season. But you go to Camp Randall, it's always a bit of a tricky environment. So the Buckeyes will get a chance to watch those games. Players will get a chance to relax. The coaching staff will get out to recruit. And I think by the end of the weekend, I expect Ohio State to still be number 1. And now you have a bit more scouting on some of those teams as players and coaches get a chance to watch them. So thanks for tuning in to this week's Bucknuts Happy Hour. If you are watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button and hit the bell for notifications so you get all of our YouTube videos, including these podcasts, but also all of the interviews that we post. If you are listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, please leave a 5-star review, leave us comments. We appreciate that. It is all very helpful. And we'll be back next week with more focus on the Buckeyes and the rest of the season, specifically that Washington game, which I'm really excited about. Never been out to Seattle, so a chance to go out there and see them play in Seattle. Cheers, Buckeye fans.